I am Nilina. I am one of the writers at Data for India. Before joining DFI, I was working as a data journalist. So mainly I worked with government surveys, I worked with census data and other published reports. In this past year, while working at DFI, what changed for me essentially is that now started working directly with the raw data behind those reports. And that has opened up a lot of new possibilities for me. So it has allowed me to find clear answers to a lot of very basic questions. And often these go beyond what the published reports alone were telling me. And this is exactly what we are trying to do with data for in as part of Data for India. So there's publicly available data, but what we want to do is that we want to make it more accessible to everyone. Through our work, we are trying to answer fundamental questions about how people live in the country. So let me first invite Arpit to tell us more about what we are doing in Data for
Thanks for the introduction, Elena. Welcome, everyone. Very excited to start this first inaugural office hours with you. This is something we have been planning for a while and glad to do this with all of you. I am Arpit. I work with Nilena along with Nilena here at Data for India, and I lead the audience and product efforts. Um, Before we get into the session, a quick intro of how things are going to pan out today. We have split up the session in three key bits. In the first third, we'll walk you through the platform, some of the key features, and how you can engage with Data for India better in your daily visits to the website. Second, we want to walk you through some specific examples how folks in the journalism community can benefit from Data for India. And then we want to open up for a Q&A and any doubts or questions you might have on how you can use this work, and we want to address those. So uh, please keep sharing these questions in your chat. A small request, and you're sharing these questions, please try to add your name and your organization. You can also rename yourself in Zoom so that we are able to better address the need that you might have. Uh, cool. With that out of the way, I will begin this, and I will begin with a problem that I used to face a lot, and many peers of mine would also tell me. Uh, and it would be the problem of I would be online reading a claim in some newspaper or sometimes even somewhere on the internet, and or I am reporting a story or I am talking to a source, and I would ask myself, I wonder if there is data to back this. I would love to back it up with some data that would make my point stronger, and I would be going through reports and documents like Nilena was talking about earlier. Uh, but even after going out through all those reports, I'll find something and I'll ask myself, is this information really reliable? Can I trust this data source? Can I cross reference with another data source? Because sometimes I would find two contradictory numbers somewhere and I would not be able to tell which is the right one to go with. Are they talking about the same thing? Are they talking about different things? And which would bring me to my final challenge that I would face. Am I interpreting this data correctly to use it? And this familiar cycle would continue. A new story, the same problems. And I would ask myself only if there was a better way to access data around India. And this is one of the key problems Data for India is trying to solve. And this is the mission we started with insights, charts, and data to create shared knowledge and expand our understanding of India. That means not only empowering our readers to discover the right data, but also understand how that data comes together so that you are not only able to answer the queries you might have today, but more critically engage with the same information next time you come across it and feel confident to use the data you have in front of you. And we do it in two key ways. One is research and writing, which is the foundation of our work. We have an incredible team of researchers and writers who have a deep understanding of India's data ecosystem, who analyze all of this data from a non-partisan lens, and are also a lot of them are journalists beforehand, and they're experts at communicating these findings to lay readers. Uh, and then what we did, we layered all of this expertise that they have with a strong technology and product capability that improves your experience as a reader where you can easily discover the data that you need, interact with the visualizations. If you have a specific query that is not directly answered, you can play around with the data to do that better. And most importantly, you can freely access and reuse this underlying data. And don't worry, we'll talk about all of these features over the coming few minutes. Uh, and this is the intersection at which Data for India lives. And this is what we have been able to do over the last year. We have over 50 articles and 250 charts on the platform already. And these cover five broad themes, which help you understand topics like population, to understand demographics of the country and how they're evolving, to understand health, like things like malaria, anemia, how are they impacting our population, things like economy, how different sectors are playing a role, how agriculture is changing, how services is changing in the country, things like work, where you are able to understand what does employment even mean, what is self-employment, what are the numbers looking for different verticals across India, how do they look for different sectors, and finally living conditions, which talks about your access to amenities, how many people have access to water, electricity, internet, and other such things. But my favorite vertical probably is measurement. We have this incredible measurement section on the website, which complements all the other five verticals that I talked about earlier, which explains to you how not only this data is what the number actually is, but how did that number come across? How did we measure employment? How did we understand what is the right way to understand child stunting in India? How did we understand, hey, maybe let's not look at this data because this might not be the right way to understand road accidents. So this is what makes Data for India such a strong place for uh, anyone to come and understand the data they need for their reporting. Uh, and at this point, you might have some questions. This might have sparked your curiosity a little bit. And I know why you might have these questions because, like I said, I engage with the audience, and a lot of people ask me these questions. So I thought I'll ask a few of them before, and I'm trying to be a little sneaky here. So, one, you must be wondering, do we have data about education? Yes, it is under our living conditions vertical. We talk about things like enrollment, literacy, education levels, higher education. Abhishek from our team has done some fantastic work to make all of this happen. Uh, then we also have, uh, sorry, my, yeah. What more is coming? We are also working on the legal and climate verticals on our platform. So you will see a lot more data from those from us very, very soon. Um, and finally, what kind of data do we work with? So that is something very, very important about Data for India. We primarily work with data from Indian national government and select multinational agencies. What does that mean? So we work with the Indian census and its projections. We work with nationally representative household surveys like NSS, NFHS. We work with SRS and CRS data. Uh, in terms of multilateral agencies, we'll work with the data of World Bank, United Nations, WHO, ILO. An important point to note here, we don't work with data from private surveyors, think tanks, NGOs, whether they be Indian or international. A very big reason for us to do all of this is we want this data to be looked by experts. We want this data to be reliable, that the public has seen is the methodology is well known and everyone trusts it. Because we want Data for India as a resource to be citable by academia and students too, we try to keep these check and balances when we think about our data. Yeah. With this background out of the way, I'll now head into sharing a little bit of the platform with you. So I'm very excited to show you how Data for India works and how you can engage with it starting today. Yeah. So let me start at the right at the top of the platform. When you come to dataforindia.com, what you will see right at the top is uh, our home page section where you will see our six verticals that I was talking about earlier. You will see population, health, economy, living conditions, work, measurement. So you can dive into any of these verticals and see what information we have for you there. Right under that is uh, this section where we you can subscribe to our newsletter written by our founder Rukmini, which is the big shift. So this newsletter tracks the transformation of India through data, uh, and I am very biased, but it's an incredible newsletter. So we would love for you to subscribe, and you can see it in your inbox every Wednesday. Uh, What you'll also see is events like these. In the future, if we hold more events like these, you will be able to find them in your inbox too. Uh, right below that, what you'll see three of the latest articles that we are featuring on our platform. Uh, each of these articles will have a title. You will be able to see what the article is about. So this India Manufacturing Hub article, what is this actually about? Who is this article? Oh, who is this article written by? And most importantly, what vertical this article is from. So the six verticals that I had mentioned to you earlier, for each of these articles, you'll be able to see which vertical it is from, so that you know which theme is being covered under that article. Then, as you scroll further down the page, you will be able to see the latest articles from each of the six verticals: population, health, economy. One very interesting section right at the bottom of the homepage you'll be able to see is under these six vertical, what is the range of topics that we cover? So you can see under this explore all topics section for population, we have things like population growth, fertility, aging, infant mortality, life expectancy, birth, migration. Similarly, for work, we have things like female employment, self-employment, wages, etc. This gives you a good idea of the breadth of information available. So you know that this information is already available on Data for India, and you don't have to worry about finding it, and you will find a lot of uh, the key work that we have done on all of these here. One last thing before I hand over to my colleague Nirina is our search feature. So right at the top of the homepage on the right, you will see the search feature. And this might be the most relevant for this crowd because all of you might be reporting on stories. You might not have a lot of time to come to Data for India every day and find out, hey, this is something I need. Oh, is this available on the platform? You have a query in mind and you want to quickly just find the answer to that query. And the search is the best way for you to do that. So if you come under search, you should be able to find not only articles that are on the platform, but also topics and authors and the work done specifically under those themes. So let's say if I type in search, I want to type malaria. And you will be able to see not only the latest article that we have around malaria, you will be able to see the complementary measurement piece about uh, what, uh, how malaria was measured, other complementary pieces like mortality, other health pieces. And if you scroll, you will be able to see topics like health, communicable diseases, and measurement, but also authors who have written on these subjects so that you have that information accessible to you too. Cool. With that out of the way, I'll hand it over to my colleague Nilena, who will walk you through some of this work and how you can use all of this for your reporting. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, Arpit. Let me share my screen now. All right, there we go. Okay, so what I'll do now is give you a quick walkthrough of a couple of our stories to tell you how we put our work together. So when you come on to the homepage, this is what you see. And the best way to navigate this, like Arpit just demonstrated, is by going to the search feature. So on the top right, you'll see the search feature. Let me start by searching for something like, say, spending. So here you'll notice that it's not just this specific term, but also associated terms like consumption, expenditure, all of that are getting highlighted. And from here on, I'll take you to one of my favorite pieces on household spending in India. So let me first explain what is it that you see here on this page. Right on top, again, you'll see the vertical, like Arpit said. So under which of these six verticals this falls is something you can find here. Then you have the heading, and you have a subhead, which is something that sums up the main point of the article. Below that, you will see who's the author. So this was written by my colleague Abhishek. And also under that, you will see two dates. So you will have the date when it was published, and you also see the date when it was updated. Now, this part is important because what we do is we have regular planned revisions of both the charts in our pieces as well as the text whenever there's any new data set that becomes available. Further on the left hand side here, what you will see is the navigation panel. So this broadly tells you what are the themes that are covered in this particular piece. So in this specific case, we are talking about how much a household spends each month on an average. This number is always fascinating to break down because it tells you so much about people's behavior, their lives, their priorities, and how that evolves over time. So first, we start with a basic explanation of what actually comes under household spending. Once that is clear, we dive right into the data. So you have the key statistic right up top. For instance, in this case, it tells you that Indian households spent a little under rupees 20,000 every month. So that single data point immediately sticks with you. And from there on, what we do is we unpack this statistic step by step. So let's look at different sections, like what is it that Indians actually spend on. So this section covers that. Further, what we do is break that down and tell you about different groups and how household spending varies across different groups, be it quintiles or be it socioeconomic groups or be it regional variations, so state-wise variations. And finally, as is the case in many of our pieces, what we then look at is how a particular number has evolved over time. So in this case, you will find information about how household spending has grown over time in urban and rural households and what that looks like. Now, coming to this final chart, this is a bit of a special mention. So, this is one of our favorite charts, and that's true for the entire team, actually. So, all of us together really love this chart. We think it makes a very striking point. So, what I encourage all of you to go and do is please go and check out this chart. So, we'll share a link to this article. Go there, go check out this chart, and please let us know what you think about it and what you make of it. And now coming back to the structure of this piece. So once you're done reading the piece, you will find the list of footnotes here. So this is referenced throughout the piece and it's also listed down here all together. And finally, at the end, after you are done with this particular piece, then you will come to the read more section. So here you will see listed a bunch of pieces which are related in some way or the other to what you have been reading about, so that you can further explore your topic. So yeah, so that's basically how our pieces are structured. And one more thing that I want to highlight once again, even though this is something that Arpit already mentioned at length, but I want to talk about the measurement piece here again. So for instance, this piece has an accompanying measurement piece about household consumption. And that measurement piece basically breaks down what that number is, how it's measured, how it has changed over time. So the calculation of it itself has evolved over time. And it's very interesting and it's really insightful. So I encourage all of you to check out the measurement pieces whenever possible. And I want to mention that it's something that we all think is very important for all of us, because the measurement pieces allows us to look at a data point or look at a number not just as one absolute truth, but it provides us contexts that shape that data point. And I think as people who write about data, I think that's something that's really crucial. Yeah, so now that we have gone over the structure of one of our pieces, let me do the same and take you through one of our charts and explain what that would look like. And for that, I'll use another piece that's quite popular. This is about vehicle ownership in India. So here it starts with a simple premise of what share of Indians own private vehicles. From this piece, let me pick one of the charts. I'll use this one and I will take you through all of the different components that you see here one by one. So to begin with, you see the heading here, which tells you, which basically describes what this chart is showing you. So here what we see is how the change in vehicle ownership across households over time. So after the heading, you see the subhead. This is a key takeaway from this chart that you see. And at the bottom, you have a list of all the sources from which this data has been compiled. And also at the bottom, you see these three buttons, and we will get back to these buttons in a minute. But first, let's talk about this chart. You will see here on top, there is an interactive button. It says select vehicle. So when you click on it, it gives you three different types of vehicles that you can pick. So by default, you have the two-wheeler here. So for the two-wheeler, what you can see in the chart is how the share of households that own two-wheelers has grown, both in urban households as well as rural households. Now let's look at cars, and immediately you see the line drop drastically. So that itself gives you a perspective, because even in the year 2023, even in urban households, car ownership is as low as 13% compared to what you saw for two wheelers. And finally, let's look at the third one, which is bicycles. And what you see is that the trend itself is different for bicycles. So that is how, as you explore this chart, as you play with this chart, you begin to see a pattern emerge. And it is this interactivity which really brings the story alive. So instead of going over tables and going over numbers, you can actually find the story right here. Now let's talk about these three buttons that we pointed out earlier. So this is just a helpful guide which tells you how you could interact with the chart. Then you have the table. So this essentially is the data set which was used to build this chart, and that is something you will find right here. And finally, you have the share button. So depending on what you want to do with this insight, there are a few different options that we provide. So you could download this image as it is. You could store it locally on your phone or on your computer. You also have an option of downloading the data behind this chart. So you could look at the data for this specific selection that you've made, or you could look at all of the data that was used in this chart and download it as a CSV file, which you can store locally. You can use it to analyze the data and so on. You also have an option to embed this chart onto your website, onto wherever you are required to do that. And finally, you can just copy this link. So if you want to share this insight with somebody, just send them this link, and this is what they'll see. So those are all the things that you can do, and this is for any of the charts that you see on our website. And I'll ask Arpit to tell us more about how we can, or how all of you can use our work. Arpit?
Great. Uh, Thank you, Nirana. Let me just share my screen again. So
Yeah.
I think I want to start with uh, exactly where Nirana ended, is why even build these features? Why have the easy access to be able to download the data, download the chart, use the chart, share the chart? And this is at the center of how Data for India works. So one important characteristic of our platform is all of our work is open by default. All of our work is licensed under the Creative Commons International Attribution License 4.0. What that allows you, as folks on the journalism community, is to use any of the work on our platform to adapt, build on top of that material, as long as you attribute the original creator, which will be Data for India in this case. Um, what does that look like? That means you can share our work. If you want to republish our work, our articles in print or online, as long as you cite us, you are able to do that. If you want to use a particular insight out of it, or just take the data out of a chart and work with it yourself, if you want to just quote a particular data point, you can do this all without any cost and directly just citing data for India, do that work. And many organizations are already doing that. All these organizations and individuals across India and the world are using Data for India today. That includes places like the Hindu, Mint, the Economic Times, Economist, BBC, Bloomberg, even independent news creators or journalists who have gone independent like Ravish Kumar, Rohan Venkat, even creators like Mohak Mangal use our work to reach out to their audiences. And I want to walk you through three of these examples today for you to better imagine what does reusing something could look like for you. Uh, the first example I want to walk through with everyone is The Economist. So all of us are aware of economists and the work they produce and the rigor that they produce it with. So they used the Employment in India piece by Abhishek, my colleague, uh, in one of their pieces. That piece is a great one-on-one explanation of how employment looks like in India. I would highly recommend all of you check it out. But it has one specific data point, which is also one of my most interesting data points, is it talks about how public sector employment looks in India. And this is the small piece of information that enabled a piece and a chart in The Economist. And what you also see is, along with that, they also mention data for India as a source, how they have gotten access to that data, amongst other databases that they've used. So they have combined data for India's work along with other work to be able to do that. So this was a small example of picking up a data point. A slightly larger example is all of us are aware of Zerodha, which is one of the largest brokerage firms across the country. They have this newsletter, which is called the Daily Brief, which goes out to their audience, where they share how the markets are evolving across the country, across different sectors every day of the week. And for that, they use Nirina's piece, Women in Manufacturing, which again, I'm biased there, but a very, very good piece about, with a lot of data about how to understand how manufacturing and the participation of women in manufacturing is looking in India. And what they did was not only re- work with that piece, but they repurpose that piece with another information from a report to talk about the evolution of factories in India. And what they did was they cited us duly and they largely borrowed from our work. So as you can see on the screenshot here, uh, even the chart that is visible to all of you, this is a chart directly picked from Nirina's piece, and they have adopted it on their platform. Um, Finally, I want to give you my favorite example, which is one of the biggest reasons why we think data for India exists, is Pulyabazi. So, uh, if you're not aware of Pulyabazi is a Hindi first podcast talking about news events every week. They also have a once in a week newsletter that goes out. So, for this newsletter, because they have a Hindi speaking and Hindi reading audience, they wanted to reach out to them and being able to share our work with them. Because our work is under Creative Commons license, they were able to not only just reuse it, they were able to take Abhishek's self-employment piece, completely translate the piece verbatim in Hindi, and we helped them through the translation. We reviewed the translation for them so that any of the technical nuance and the expertise that we bring is not lost. And the piece is verbatim published on their website so that it's accessible to their audience. It is uh, it is one of my favorite things to highlight because that highlights the power of data for India and the work that we publish in open. It as long as organizations like Pulyabazi are there to want to use this work and bring it to their audience, they can do it free of cost. Um, Now, again, looking at all of this, since we have people from the newsrooms there, you must have stories that are going out tomorrow or next week, and you are thinking, oh, hey, can I put some data in this? And again, you might have some questions right now. And because, like I said earlier, I talked to a lot of audiences, so I thought I'll answer a few more for you before I know. Can you get city level data? Unfortunately, we do not have city level data on the platform right now. Uh, can I get data on elections? So, Data for India does not cover politics or elections in our work. Uh, Now, what if you want some data that does not exist on the platform? Yes, we are very open to working with newsrooms, partnering with them on projects, and collaborating to solve the data needs of a newsroom. So if you are interested in doing that, please reach out to us at info@dataforindia.com and we would love to collaborate with you. So that was the Data for India platform for everyone. I am very happy that I could share this with all of you. And thank you to Nilana for doing this with me. If you want to follow our work more, like I mentioned earlier, subscribe to our newsletter. That is the best way for you to understand what's the latest that's happening on Data for India. If you have any queries still after this session, please reach out to us at info@dataforindia.com. We are on all major social media platforms also. We keep publishing our work there. Please follow us there. We would happy to have you there too. Thank you.